Hi, I'm Ali and today we're looking at the characteristics of living things. It's not always easy for students to tell the difference between living, dead and non-living. Science has general rules to help decide if something is living, dead or non-living. These are called life processes. You can see by our choice of words that things are not just living or non-living, but a differentiation is made between non-living and dead. Now, if you don't want to use the term dead, then you can use the term once living or was living. While you're exploring this content, please think about this distinction. Before we start, let's reflect on what you think makes something living, dead or non-living. Is fire living? Is a pumpkin seed living? How do you make sense of these differences? Take a few moments to think about this and write down a few points. The Australian Curriculum of Science links concepts together, and this is really evident in the biology theme. As you can see, before Year 3, key aspects associated with living things are seeded in the students' minds, but it is actually in Year 3 where the concepts associated with living things are actually targeted. After that, these characteristics are expanded on to enhance student understanding. Just a quick point on graphic organisers. Remember, a graphic organiser allows you to take more effective and efficient notes during these online, pre-lab learning sessions and also during your lab. Taking better notes is not only a great skill to have, but a fantastic one to teach your students. The video you're about to watch uses primarily list describe, so you can use structured notes, headings, subheadings, bullet points and pictures, or you can use a table. The key is to take careful notes and to record questions that will help you gain a deeper understanding or a clarification. Bring these notes and questions to your lab this week. Your objectives for the video this week are to identify and explain each of the life processes. Explain how the life processes relate to something being identified as living, dead or non-living. Classify an object as living, dead or non-living using the criteria. Student alternative concepts for this topic are that plants don't move, that all animals move, that a single criterion defines whether something is living, and that breathing is the same as respiration. Let's have a look at all these things. Movement. Animals and plants move at different rates. The insides of all living things are constantly moving. Animals move to find shelter, to escape from predators and other danger, to find a mate, and to find food. With plants, you might not be able to see the leaves turning towards the sun or flowers opening and closing because they are moving so slowly, but they still move. Respiration. Respiration is a chemical reaction that takes place within the cells, which is why it's referred to as cellular respiration, and this is where glucose reacts with oxygen to produce energy. The energy is needed for growth, repair and movement. Water and carbon dioxide are byproducts of respiration, and they need to be excreted. Plants photosynthesize to make sugars, but they also respire to use the sugars they have made. Photosynthesis and cellular respiration both occur during the day in plants, so they make the sugars and they use some of them right away. However, when there is no sunlight, plants do not photosynthesize to make sugars. They can only respire to use the sugars they have made. People get respiration confused with breathing. Breathing is a mechanical process of taking in air and releasing air. In humans, your diaphragm moves up and out, in and down, to help move air in and out of your lungs. Try it. Put your hands on your diaphragm. Take a deep breath in and feel your diaphragm move up and out, in and down. Many animals get their oxygen by breathing, but remember, cellular respiration occurs at the cellular level. Sensitivity. This allows an individual, animal or plant to respond to changes in its environment to ensure optimum growth or protection. Ultimately, this ensures that the individual is safe and healthy and can reach maturity to allow for the reproduction of the species. Reproduction. Each species has its own unique life cycle. Some animals are born like we are, and others hatch from an egg. Flowering plants grow from seeds via sexual reproduction, but other plants use asexual reproduction, in which the offspring is genetically identical to the parent plants. In this aspect, viruses are problematic, for they behave like living organisms, but they cannot reproduce without using the parts of the genetic machinery from other life forms. So in this technical sense, viruses are not alive. However, most biologists consider viruses to be specialized, parasitic life forms that have lost their ability to reproduce independently. Excretion. All living things must excrete waste products or they become toxic to that individual. Gases, liquids and solids can be removed depending on the species. Oxygen gas is a byproduct of photosynthesis and that must be removed from plants. In humans, the lungs take in carbon dioxide from the blood and release it from the body through the process of breathing. Can you think of ways in which plants and animals excrete liquids and solids? Well, let's look at plants. Plants remove solids by sending all the toxic matter to the oldest or most injured leaf. The toxins build up and that leaf will eventually die and fall off. Have a look at a brown leaf sometime. Very clever. In animals, the excretory organs are where the waste material is removed from the blood. For example, in humans, the kidneys remove liquid from the blood and produce urine, so the kidneys are the excretory organs. Nutrition. Plants are autotroph as they use the process of photosynthesis to make their own sugars and proteins. In the presence of sunlight, water and carbon dioxide combine to make sugar and oxygen. Animals are heterotrophs as they cannot make their own food. They must consume either plants or animals for nutrition. Have a look at the tree of life. You can see here how everything in this tree would reflect the 7 life processes. Mrs. Green is a great place to start when we're looking at the concept of living things, but this concept itself has evolved, and the following 3 points should also be included when discussing things with your students. The first point is cells. All living organisms are composed of at least one cell, and these are often called the building blocks of life. The human body is comprised of trillions of cells. They provide structure for the body, they take in nutrients from food, convert those nutrients into energy, and carry out specialized functions. Cells have many parts, each part with a different function. Some of these parts, called organelles, are specialized structures that perform certain tasks within the cell. The most specialized organelle is the nucleus. Only eukaryotes have a nucleus. The nucleus is often called the control center of the cell. It contains the genetic material of the cell. In cells without a nucleus, these are called prokaryotes, this genetic material is dispersed throughout the cytoplasm in the cell. Second point, genetic code. All living organisms store genetic information using the same molecules, RNA and DNA. This is compelling evidence of the shared ancestry of all living things. The universal code controls the way in which an organism develops and its ultimate external and internal appearance. Mutations occur randomly in the genetic code. When this occurs, the instructions given to the cells by the genetic code changes. This error can positively or negatively affect the whole organism and sometimes a whole species. Many people like to describe the genetic code as being like a blueprint. After all, DNA does include instructions for building something. However, I like Richard Dawkins' understanding of DNA being more like a recipe. A blueprint describes something, but a recipe describes a process for making a thing. Like a cake recipe, DNA is a set of instructions for the process of development. If those instructions are followed, cells can divide, build, and undertake any work to maintain health and growth. However, if you misread a recipe and accidentally substitute the cooking time or sugar for salt, you would change the entire cake. So DNA is a lot like a recipe for growing a living thing. Evolve. All living things evolve. Over time, living things evolve or change slowly in response to their environment. With this new knowledge, what acronym might you develop now to help remind you of the 10 life processes? Let's go back to the original question. Is fire living, dead, or non-living? Is a pumpkin seed living, dead, or non-living? Well, let's look at fire. Fire is non-living and it does not contain any cells or any genetic code. It is just a combustion chemical reaction. A pumpkin seed, however, it has all of the above 10 characteristics, but the seed itself is moving so slowly inside. It's in stasis. It's waiting for the correct environmental conditions for it to start to grow formally.